Good evening and welcome to a special edition of the Drive at 5 on IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station. I'm your host, Roman. We have a good show planned for you today. Don't forget to stay tuned to IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station for Warriors Talk at 6 p.m. Tonight, my guest is the CEO of Hamilton Law Group, a Black-owned and operated law firm in Chicago. Please welcome back to the Drive the one and only, the attorney, Edward Hamilton. Welcome back to the Drive, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow. Thank you.
Please give IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station an update since the last time you was on the Drive.
Since the last time I was on the Drive, have been absolutely busy. A lot of criminal defense work. Some other cases, but a lot of my criminal defense work has really spiked, and that's what I'm doing primarily at this time.
Today, we observe Dr. King's Day, his birthday. How Dr. King influenced you as an attorney?
So I would just say being an agent for change, with the civil rights movement and just rights for African Americans. I would say myself, I like to try to be an agent for change, just in a different way. Just directly influencing communities and thought process of young people and things like that. So I like to mentor. I like to give whatever knowledge that I have, whether it be legally or just a life lesson. I like to spread that as well.
The laws we have as Blacks are taking advantage of today's society, are not the same of yesterday. As a lawyer, do you think Blacks overlook facts that the freedoms and liberties that Dr. King and others fought for, that Blacks cherish today, were not the law of yesterday we share with whites, like the Jim Crow law?
Give me the beginning of that question one more time.
The laws as Blacks are taking advantage of today are not the same as yesterday.
Okay. I would say, so are we doing a comparison exactly?
Yeah.
Well, I would say definitely we have a lot more rights today, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like it. Oftentimes it's like, oh, wait, nothing has changed. But definitely laws have grown, they have evolved. Civil rights movement, you can look at that specifically, and voting rights and things of that nature. So the laws have grown. Are they perfect? No. I think as a people, we kind of need to become more familiar with the law, because it's a lot of times it's like, hey, I didn't even know this particular thing I was doing was wrong. Unfortunately, we can't go into court and say, you know what, this person didn't know that this, wasn't a law. Ignorance of the law is no excuse or defense. So that's the only unfortunate part. But I think with a lot more just, intellectual radios and Zooms and everything, people could become more educated and understanding how the laws around them work. I was in, I think, my international law class, and it really just opened my mind when and you find out about how many laws affect you on a daily basis, but you don't really know about it. You actually, you might have no clue that you have international human rights and things like that affect you as well. So just becoming more educated on the laws that affect you, I think, is probably probably something that people in general, especially our community, need to do.
When you go back and I know you have seen some of the footage of Dr. King and the civil rights movement, and you talk about the voting rights, you talk about the criminal rights and civil rights. When you look at that, what, in your mind as an attorney, what goes through your mind as an attorney when you see those images, and then in comparison, some of the images you see of yesterday, you see kind of like in today's society, like the George Floyd,
Mm-hmm.
those type of incidents?
It's definitely upsetting. Watching the George Floyd was upsetting. It was just as upsetting as seeing, being in elementary school and they show you the videos of the dogs being released on people and fire hoses spraying people down. So it's definitely upsetting. I think, in a sense, a lot of the times when you have um, police officers, and they kind of get away with certain things, people are like extremely upset, as they should be. So sooner or later, and it kind of go with voting rights and things like that. You need to vote certain people into the office that can push forth and pass the laws and bills and things that you would want to protect you. But then it's like, well, you know what? I don't believe in voting, because it's not going to accomplish anything. But laws have been passed, right? So at some point, it has accomplished something. So doing it the right way, really putting people in the office that you want to put in office and people that can make the change for your benefit, I think that is part of the solution.
In your opinion, do you think there are hidden Jim Crow laws in today's society? As an attorney, you look at, you know, in a book
Hmm.
and you see, like, wow, this is actually going on today.
Hmm.
Ha-
Yeah, for sure.
Have you been through that process? Are there hidden Jim Crow laws out there that we should be aware of?
I wouldn't say hidden Jim Crow laws because they still would affect everybody. Jim Crow, of course, it was kind of geared. Well, it wasn't kind of. It was geared towards African Americans, trying to keep them, not too far away from slavery. Like, hey, you're not slaves anymore, so we're gonna put this out. You have to be mandatory sharecroppers, things like that. And then from sharecropping into Jim Crow, which is still just an extension. It's just releasing you a little bit from slavery, but it's still an extension of it. Those laws haven't been totally clear. As you can see in disparity with crack and cocaine, they had a disparity within the sentences of those two, right? Because why? Who primarily has crack cocaine? African Americans. Who primarily had regular, powder form cocaine? Not African Americans, usually Caucasians and things of that nature. So we'll penalize them a little bit less, than we'll penalize these people. So are there laws that affect African Americans disproportionately? Absolutely. For sure. Like I said, crack cocaine, you can look at the disparity between powder and then the actual crack cocaine sentencing, um, and why they tried to do some type of reform on that. So there are, it's not like clear, blatant, like, hey, white's only water fountain, you know, colored water fountain. They don't have it that blatant, but far as the effect that it has on a group of people, yes, there are still laws like that on the books.
As you mentioned, the sentencing of blacks for a crime is at an alarming rate, while whites receive less sentencing for that same crime. As an attorney, in your opinion, what law or laws should be in place to make sure blacks receive equal sentencing treatment, in your opinion?
To be honest, it's just so many things and there's so many laws. You have to see a certain scenario and say, you know what, I'm tired of this particular thing. Let's tear this down. Let's redo this. Because other than that, you have to like go through every single thing and really dive in it and see like, okay,
Is it
does
a
this need to be changed?
lawmaker's responsibility to kind of like relook and revisit some of these laws as an
Yes,
attorney?
but the lawmakers, right, are typically pushed by constituents. So if this is affecting me negatively, I need to get up and voice my opinion. So I can tell my alderman, who can tell, state rep, I can tell my state rep, I can tell my state senator, whoever I need to speak with, I can call them, my congressman, and say, hey, this is a problem in my neighborhood. This is a problem in my city. I want to do this. I tell my daughter all the time, like, look, you can be somebody, you have a voice, and every single person has a voice. You can be that person that changes this one particular thing. When people are passionate enough about a cause, it's like, hey, you know what? um my brother or whatever was wrongfully accused or whatever the case may be, right? They will push for that and try to champion a law to save their family member as well as other people from falling victim to that particular law. So an average person can do it. especially with social media nowadays, right? You can kind of get that ball rolling with social media, and then that'll kind of put some steam behind your representative or
What
politician.
particular law that sticks out to you the most that mainly affects, let's say, your clients?
A lot of my clients, they kind of get caught up with guns. I think we kind of touched about it last time, but they kind of get caught up with guns. I get a lot of UUW, unlawful use of a weapon claims. Maybe I own a gun, I have my FOI card, but I don't have my concealed carry license. So I decided I wanted to take my gun in my car. I didn't transport it properly, right? And it sucks because I own it legally. It's a legally bought purchase weapon. They did my background check and everything, but because I, didn't have it in the case or whatever, um, that the rule that they used to regulate it, now I have a felony on my record potentially. So I think that kind of be needs to be revisited. But I know Illinois, they tight on guns, even though it's like, guns state by state. Some states you don't have any gun. You 18, you buy a gun.
Is is it does it depend on the type of gun you have, or
Mm,
it doesn't matter?
right. So handguns are even regulated. That's why you have to have a FOI card to buy it in Illinois. But if I go to Florida, I can buy a gun. I don't need a specific license to say you can buy the gun. Most red states typically have less regulation than blue states. Blue states have more regulations on weapons than the red states.
Should there be a prosecutorial oversight committee regarding sentencing towards blacks?
I wouldn't even get to sentencing. I would start at actually filing the charges. And I think
What
um
you mean by that?
yeah, I got you.
Okay.
Um so I think, right, so the state's attorney's office, something happens, you get caught or whatever, the state's attorney decide that, hey, we want to charge this person and prosecute him. I think you need to start at that point, because after that point, right, we're talking about sentencing. What about before that? What if I'm a person who, I have a job and I'm a regular tax-paying citizen, and someone says, hey, this guy did this particular thing, right? They robbed me. It could have not been me. I could have been nowhere around there. But because somebody came and pointed me out of a lineup, right, and said that I was the person and signed a complaint, said I was the person that did it, the state's attorney's office is more than likely just going to prosecute that case and leave it up to me to pay, thousands of dollars for a lawyer, possibly lose my job if I'm, still incarcerated, um, and hopefully, try to offer me, oh, we'll give you probation or something. And it's like, I'm an innocent man, so why should I have to accept probation? I've done absolutely nothing. They have a mistaken identity, but I'm, I have to go through all of these things just to clear myself when it's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. But in all actuality, before I, get a lawyer and everything, I'm out of thousands of dollars a job. My life has changed, a number
Can
of
you
things.
reverse those charges back to the prosecutors, to the state that's prosecuting you?
What do you mean reverse them?
Meaning that, okay, you were out thousands of dollars.
Are you saying
Yeah, reverse the charges of the courts.
so I don't I'm thinking depending on the scenario, you might have a civil suit, but I don't really handle them. So I don't speak too much on them, but possibly you'll have a civil suit from that. But I mean, you lose your job. I don't think, you can say, hey, city, tell the job to hire me again. That's probably not going to happen. But to some extent, on from a civil side, you should have some sort of case. But like I said, I don't do too much of it. So
Do you think we are moving backwards regarding laws we as blacks are taking advantage of today? Do you think we're moving backwards? You look at what's going on. You George Floyd a couple of years ago. Then they said we're going to cut back police brutality. You're still seeing officers putting knees to the neck. You're still seeing officers pulling people over illegally without no probable cause. So, are we moving backwards? Are they saying, regardless of what the law says I'm going to do what I want to do.
Mhm.
Are you thinking we're heading towards that direction? Because it seems that way.
For sure, that kind of goes into kind of what I was just saying. Um, you have like all the time one of the major keys in a criminal case, especially gun cases, and vehicles and things like that, is like Fourth Amendment. Was there a Fourth Amendment violation? So basically, did the officer have reasonable suspicion to actually stop me? And then, are they able to, if I'm in a vehicle, if they stop my vehicle, are they able to get me out of the vehicle, right? Get me out of the vehicle and search my vehicle. So, all the time, those like the really, really big questions pretty much in every gun case all the time. It's usually never a case where a police officer just did everything right. Not in Chicago. You go to like some of those small counties and towns. It's funny because they go by the book. But Chicago, major cities around the country for the most part, they'll kind of do what they want, and then they'll try to lie on a report to try to make it look right, and then it's up to the attorney. Sorry, it's up to the attorney to kind of get it undo everything basically. So
Is
yeah,
it hard to fix that or
it depends, and it just that's kind of like the only part I don't like about it because you're playing with someone's life. Like as an officer, I get it. It's your job to stop crime. But every single person that has a gun is not, a criminal. Like I just said, it's I own my gun legally,
Mhm.
but I took it out the house to go to the range. But maybe when I left the range, I forgot to put it in the trunk and I put it in a glove compartment or whatever, right? Officer stops him. Oh, you got any weapons in the car? They search the car, they find a gun. This is not a person that's outside, shooting up people, robbing people, anything like that. This is a regular person, works, owns their weapon, protects their home with their weapon, all the reasons that they should have the weapon. But I made a mistake and forgot to put it here and I put it there. And now I have an officer who's doing their job, finds a weapon, and instead of I guess they kind of wouldn't be able to look at that scenario each person individually because they don't know you, but at least do your job correctly. Don't lie and say, "Hey, this is what happened, and this is why this person was out of the car," even though you shouldn't have taken them out of the car. You had absolutely no reason to take them out of the car, but because you found a gun, you're gonna try to reverse back and make it look as if you had a reason to take them out of the car, just so they could be actually charged. Possibly get a record from this gun. So
is it hard to dismiss those cases? You had a case previously that was gun possession and it was dismissed. I know you can't really give full details,
right.
but can you give us a brief synopsis of what happened? Because a lot of people don't know. The problem, I think, and it's just me,
Excuse me.
I think we, the lack of knowledge of the law is apparent in the Black community. What can a person do if they don't know their rights? Is there a book, a website, or anything that a person can familiarize themselves with a state or federal law? I'll give you a prime example. Today, they're coming out this week with an app, a lawyer app that you just hook the app up. The trial is via Zoom, and the app will tell the person what to say and how to say it versus a real life attorney. If you lose the case, they'll refund your money back.
That's interesting. I haven't heard of that. So the first part of that, is there any specific thing? I would say generally just Google, right? You can kick it off with Google. It'll kind of point you in the right direction of
But
what you're looking for.
when you, let's say, gun possession rights
Hmm.
or civil rights, everything pops up. What is a good website, you think?
It like I said, it's just Google, honestly, because if you're thinking like, okay, can I be charged with this, or what about this particular charge? If you Google it, you're gonna have lawyers that have written articles and things on that particular topic. So that's always a good place to start, just with them, because they're gonna have expertise in the area and they're kind of guiding you. They're not gonna give you everything because they're gonna want you to pay them, but they're gonna give you enough to kind of point you in that direction. And then from there, it's like, oh, okay, now I probably need to look up this part of it as well. And if you do that and piece those together, you'll have a good idea. Um, Civil rights in general. Ooh, I'm thinking. I'm thinking maybe. I don't know how great, but just the Constitution. If you can get a copy of it, or if you can Google a copy of it, kind of go through that. Just to know certain rights. But if you just want to know, like right now, anytime you encounter the police, everybody listen, do not talk to them. That would be my best advice. Don't talk to the police. If they're like, asking you about any particular thing, just don't talk to them. If it's, hey, how you doing? Hi, how are you? Fine. Or you have a situation, that's fine. But anytime a police they want to question you about a crime or anything like that, don't talk to them. People tend to think, oh, you know what? I'm a smooth guy. Talk my way out of it, and you're probably talking your way into something. So,
Last month, we had a workshop concerning gun possession, and that was part of it. You said the less information you give a police officer, the better. During a traffic stop, a murder case, or anything, if you're stopped by the police,
hmm
use your Fifth Amendment right. Why people don't take that advice?
exactly what I said. Sometimes people think they are, um, they are slick enough to, you know what? I'll be able to talk my way out of this. I can tell them this
Do
is
they
what
talk their
happened.
way out of it? Do you see cases?
No, most of the time people talk their way into something. Like, you might have been okay initially, right? Police might have had to let you go, but because you talked, you told us things that you told them things that they didn't know. Now they're able to piece it together and, oh, okay, now I have enough to actually charge you. When possibly you didn't say anything, you probably would have walked out the door. So it's never a good
If I
idea. It
have
never happens.
a gun
hmm
on me
Okay.
and they said, hey, stop. I said, I have a gun on me. Now they're drawing their weapons, but I'm letting them know I'm harmless. I have a gun.
hmm
Now they're getting aggressive towards me.
hmm
You're saying don't tell them that. Let them find it.
So if you're walking, it's never a reason for the police to just come up to you and say, "Hey, don't move." Right? This is not. I wouldn't even say Jim Crow. This is not Nazi Germany or anything where people can say, "Show me your papers," and before I let you pass. Right? They can't do it. So it's never a
But it
scenario.
happens though.
Yeah, but it's never a scenario where it should happen. But if it does happen, the police say, "Hey, stop. What can I do for you, officer?" That's it. Oh, you look like, you fit a description. That's the line, right? You fit the description. Okay, what can I do from here, right? And what I'm saying is, you can still, listen, because you never want to argue with the police, because then you get a fake resisting arrest charge or something like that, right? So now you have a charge. So you never want to argue with them about it. It's just, you don't have to interact more than necessary. So if they want to stop you, stop. Because what harm does it cause, right? If you stop. But I will tell you this: if you run, that's worse, right? Because
Why is
now,
that? If they're
possibly,
scared of the police,
because
if
now as an
I don't want to
officer,
be another Trayvon Martin, I don't want to be that's embedded in their head.
hmm
I don't want to be another case. So if they stop me, I'm gonna run. I'm gonna go to my parents' house and they go from there. You're saying don't do that. Deal with it.
don't run. That can lead to you being Trayvon Martin or somebody else, right? Because already in the officer's head, this person just fled. So that tells me they have something on them, guns, drugs, something illegal. Because in the officer's mind, based on their training, a normal person wouldn't do those things. Now, flight itself is not enough, but a lot of the times, a lot of courts give officers reasonable suspicion if you run, which means if you run, that's more than a mere hunch of me thinking you had something. That's a specific fact that can lead me to believe that you were doing something criminal, which gives me the ability to actually stop you now. When I just talked to you and asked you, I technically didn't, as an officer, I technically didn't have the ability to stop you. So if anything, transcended from there, then you'll be fine. But if you run, I have the ability to stop you, more likely than not. And once come up to you, if I find something on you, then now you have a problem.
There are some cases and some scenarios that a person was wearing earplugs
Mm-hmm.
and the officers tell them to stop, but they couldn't hear them.
Mm-hmm.
And they kept walking and walking. And now the police gets aggressive and takes them down. There are cases like that. What would you say as an attorney? I have my earplugs. I'm minding my own business. They say I fit a description,
Mm-hmm.
and they say stop right there. Stop right there. I keep going. I'm minding my own business. I'm not bothering nobody.
Right.
And all of a sudden, it's a takedown. Your thoughts?
I think officers tend to handle situations wrong. De-escalation for sure. Even though it's really not escalated because the guy doesn't even notice them, so it's not like, hey, it's a standoff. But the officers kind of take things all the way up. So as an officer, you probably will want to make sure this person can hear you and make sure they see you, right? So hey, we'll stop, get in front of them, catch up to them. You know what? Can I tap them or something before you go tackling people? That's what I think. That's what I think should happen. That seems
But
like what a reasonable person
it
would do.
tackling that person,
That's ridiculous.
that's wrong too.
Yeah. Why are you tackling someone? Because if you're a regular person, you don't have on your uniform and you tackle someone, it's a battery. So what's the difference? Oh, they didn't stop for my commands. If you're a regular person and you're saying stop and they don't stop, can you tackle them then? No, you can't. So as an officer, I wouldn't be as quick to run, and physically touch or use some type of force. I would say that's excessive force. Maybe a judge or whatever probably wouldn't agree because it's like, oh, you know what? They only tackled him because. But if you look at the surrounding circumstances, they never tried to figure out why he kept going. Right? He didn't run. You didn't say he ran away. You said he walked. I'm walking away. So come, stop, talk to me, get in front of me, get my attention, make sure I can hear you, make sure I can see you, because it's commonplace for people to wear earphones. So wouldn't a normal person think, you know what? I said hey, or I tried to stop him and they didn't hear me, right? Or he didn't stop. A normal person would think, oh, he didn't hear me. Most people would think he might got headphones on.
Or
That's just
deaf.
how today, or deaf. That's how today is. Like everybody, has on anywhere, people walking, jogging, whatever, headphones. So
Do you think when it comes to adversity in the black community, blacks just give up because of the lack of knowledge of their rights instead of fighting for their rights?
I do. I absolutely do. Speaking of Dr. King and civil rights, it's like they had more drive to make change, and affect change for themselves as well as generations after them. And now you still well, I'm not gonna say all the way, but you still have people that do. It just seems like sometimes the masses are just like, oh well, and nothing I can do about it. But you do have people who still fight for different reasons.
You you also deal with some home cases as well,
What do you mean?
like foreclosures or
Mm.
something like that. A lot of people would ignore the mail or ignore the phone calls because they're saying, yeah, You get it when you get it. You say to that.
That's the worst attitude to have. Sometimes you can actually help a situation before it gets too far. But I know at certain points, right, in the foreclosures, even with tax liens, things like that, when it's going too far, then it's going too far. I've seen
What is going too far, by the way?
basically they might have gotten a judgment against you already, or your redemption period is up, something like that. And it's once that point is passed, right? Because you have a certain amount of time for certain actions. Like you might have, just say you got the notice, you received notice that you were in foreclosure, and they went to foreclosure. You know, you missed your redemption period afterwards or whatever, and now your home has actually been sold, right? It's been to foreclosure, it's been sold to someone else, they have a
But don't
deed.
they supposed to legally give you notice of an auction date
We're saying if they had the notice,
if they had the notice?
right? If I
Okay.
had the notice and I still just like, yeah, whatever, right? But even not even with a home, like this could be with anything.
With a car?
It'd be with cars, any possession, like anything. Like always try to stay on top of it. I know, it's not talked about a lot. So when I was 19, 20, things like that, it's like, oh, whatever. Credit card, you know. But nah, you want to get in front of it, tackle it, and I just kind of take that approach with life. Period. Just get in front of things, handle those things up front, first, and then you'll be okay on the back end of it.
9 times out of 10, a lot of people say, I know how to deal with it myself. I'm smart enough. They get in front of a judge and they give them all this spiel or something like that, thinking it's Judge Judy, thinking it's Judge Mathis, thinking it's these judge shows, and they find opposite. Then they see they're losing and they say, well, I want a continuance. And that's a good word, by the way. When you're in trouble, before you even the judge says something, Judge, may I have a continuance to give you time to get a lawyer,
hmm
to give you time to figure out what you need to do.
So it depends on the judges. Some judges, they kind of get it. Like, hey, you're exercising your right. It's not a problem. But when they notice people are in over their head, they will say, you know what? I think it'd be better if you get an attorney. You get an attorney, and they give them time for that. But some judges, they like, no, I don't have time for you to play in my courtroom. I have, 120 cases today. I don't have time to deal with you. Like, you're gonna get an attorney, depending on if it's civil or criminal, also. But just say it's civil, you gonna get an attorney, or I'm gonna rule how I'm gonna rule, and that's really gonna be that. So I would say get professionals to do the job that they're paid to do, right? If and
If
I,
you have a court date, just go ahead, go to court and ask for a continuance. They'll give you a week or two
hmm
to give to get an attorney. Make sure you have that attorney in a week or two, right?
yeah, civil cases for sure. Criminal cases, you might get a month. They'll give you a month or something. They definitely don't really care for people to represent themselves in criminal court. But judges prefer attorneys because judges were attorneys, right? So it's like the attorneys are gonna know their way around a courtroom, and that's more than the most educated layperson that you can find. Um, Attorneys still gonna know their way around more. Even a new attorney, they'll know their way around a court, and how it works more than like I said, the most educated layperson. So a judge would prefer to have them than a layperson. Sometimes it's just funny, when you watching people who want to represent themselves, even in a civil case, interact with judges. It's funny sometimes.
Please give intellectualradio.com/iHeart radio station how they can get in contact with you. What is your specialty? So forth and so on.
So technically, according to the Illinois Supreme Court, no attorney has specialties because there are no specific um, certificates or anything like that given out for specialties. But You do have practice areas. I practice a nice amount of things, honestly. But like I said, it's been heavy criminal, personal injury, some real estate. I've been approved to be an attorney agent to sell homes. So if you want to sell a home, contact Hamilton Law Group. Represented, um, people buying homes, intellectual property, and that's about it. But contact me. I'm always on some type of social media, Facebook, posting something positive, maybe something funny from time to time. But um, Edward, what is my name?
Hamilton.
Yes. No, it's something else. Edward CEO Hamilton on Facebook, and then New Vision CEO on Instagram. And you can find me at either one of those.
All right. Thanks, my man.
No
Thanks for
problem,
having
sir.
me. And don't forget, we going to have another workshop
Yes,
on January 31st via Zoom, where
correct.
it's called at Edward Hamilton Anything. And see, he's representing, right?
Yeah, I have to show my family.
So he'll be back next month. If you have any questions, please DM me and we'll be happy to ask them. So that's going to do it for us on this Dr. King holiday. Thanks to Earl Winfrey, our executive producer. Wanda's behind the scenes. You guys have a wonderful week.